Greetings and welcome to a Warhammer Underworlds Nethermaze review, where I'm going to review the core set for Warhammer Underworlds Nethermaze, which is Season 6 for Warhammer Underworlds. But before we get into things, thanks goes to Games Workshop for providing this to review for free. As always, I aim to be honest, constructively critical and impartial. And yeah, please remember to like and subscribe as comment. Let me know what you think of this core set, the Warbands, the review, the new season, 6 monthly seasons, all this kind of stuff. Let me know. Be really interested. Also, I have a Discord if you're interested down in the episode description. And if you want, you can even support me even more by checking out my Patreon. But without further ado, let's get on with the review. So yeah, I've got Nethermaze, which sounds terrible with phrasing. But yeah, Nethermaze is the new season for Warhammer Underworlds. It is a new season. I know people get very upset and they go, "Stop talking about Warhammer Underworlds, John. And it's not a new season. The roadmap." But it is a new season. It was tested as Season 6, and Nethermaze is a new season because Warhammer Underworlds is going to 6 monthly seasons. So you're going to get core set, 2 Warband expansions, and a rival deck. I'm kind of past caring about that. Like, getting that out of the way. I mean, I can see the benefits of it with regular rotation and rules update, although I don't think Diachasm is going to rotate out yet. But I do side and sympathize with the people who don't want to buy a core set every 6 months. But, you know, make that own decision what you want. I'm pretty much neutral now. Before I was against it. Now I'm just, like, indifferent. Like, it's the way the game is going to go. So there's no point changing or trying to get angry over it. Just let it be. But yeah, this is the 6th season in Warhammer Underworlds in 5 years? Because the game it'll be 5 years old in September. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, I'll be going through the core set, showing you what's in it. I'll be doing separate Warband breakdowns, so this review may be oddly shorter than the other reviews I'll be dropping today, because I think I'm dropping 4. Because not only do I have to review Nethermaze, as core sets, as Warbands, I've also got the Exiled Dead, which are dropping at the same time. But yeah, I'll be going over the core set, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, let's get on with the review. So for the narrative, we're now in a deeper part of Harrowdeep. We've gone deeper than the Harrowdeep. Like, we went in Shadespire, we went deeper into Shadespire and found the Night Vault, and then in Beastgrave, we went further into Beastgrave and found the Diachasm. So now we've gone into the Harrowdeep, and then beneath this undersea labyrinth, underneath the ocean, is now this underwater maze, which is a shadow maze in Uglu. And also, big thing, if you make your way through it at the end, you end up in Haish. So we now know Season 7 is going to be in Haish, which is pretty new. Other than that, the narrative is pretty much the same, except for my biggest criticism, and it's probably my biggest criticism of the game. I super dislike that the Catherine curse is gone. Because if you weren't aware, with the start of Harrowdeep, Teclis beat up Nagash and broke up the curse of, what do you call it, Nagash's curse. So effectively, if you die in the Underworlds, you die for real, which defeats my immersion in the setting and the uniqueness of it. Because the thing before, you know, you'd have people die and you go, oh, they'll come back. Like, they're actually tortured because they're stuck in this eternal loop. It's like Groundhog Day. They feel everything of dying, then come back to life. Now they just immediately die and that's it. They're gone. Which I thought they were going to use as a way to kill off Warbands, but they're not. One interesting fan adaptation I've heard is, like, you're not actually fighting as your Warband, you're fighting as the illusion, which is cool, but they don't mention that anywhere in the background. And it's just, yeah, I just find it a bit boring. It's not like going in a best of 3, right? You know, you go, like, literally, as I said in my Harrowdeep review, I'm going to kill Mollog and kill him for the entire game. And because it's not the same as 40k and Sigma where stuff gets injured. The IP for Underworlds is they specifically die. In books, they describe their deaths. So it's just, it just makes me lose passion for the setting, which is really a shame, really, you know, because It now feels like they're trying to find ways to build up mysticism, which is cool, but the entire problem is you can't have high-paced arena combat unless you have literally multiple versions of the same people fighting inside. So that's pretty much it. You either love it or hate it, but for me, I really don't like the new direction of the narrative, which is a shame. So for the contents of Nethermaze, don't worry, it's not as bad as Diachasm, but will never be as good as Doom Ruin. You get 2 warbands. You get the Shadeborn Rivals deck and the Skittershanks Clawpack Rival deck, which is not Umbraneth, but they're just more factions of the Daughters of Cain. And then you have Clan Eshin for Skaven, which is really neat. So you got some... So the Skaven side look really cool. You've got this really like assassin ninja Skaven, which haven't been updated in years. And the miniatures, honestly, for the Skaven stuff look sublime. They're really fun to play. But I'll get into that. And then you've got like the elves. You have a core set. You have new dice, different colored dice. So they're no longer repackaging the dice from Shadespire and core sets. But new dice is nice. You got new boards, which look, I really like the color of it. And you get instructions. You get a deck of rival cards. No, you get a deck of universal cards and Grand Alliance cards. So you get a lot. Don't know the price. I'll probably know the price tomorrow after I've finished recording it. I may edit it in. We'll see. Ooh. You can think of that. Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's a lot. You decide. But that's pretty much it. That's what you get inside. Standard core set. You know, if you're regular Warhammer Underworlds player, you're just like swimming in core sets at this point. But it's everything you need to play, and it's a great jumping on point for new players. So for the warbands, let's start off with Skittershanks Clawpack. Once I said, if you want to listen to more in-depth reviews of these warbands, I'll do separate videos with them, which will be in the episode description under articles. They're cool. They're like assassin Eshin ninjas. They haven't been updated in like 20 years. Really cool, really fun to play, fast, just really nice, like fun, much better than the last core set. They're a bit weak, you know, and they rely on killing or damaging leaders, which is nice. It's a slightly new mechanic. But yeah, they're pretty fun. I think people are going to gravitate towards them. They're just really neat. Then you've got the Shadeborn, the elves for Marathi. They're okay. The problem they have, there's only 4 of them. Most of them are 3 wounds apart from the leader. They can do really cool things where they can kind of teleport from edge hexes and gloom hexes, and they play around gloom hexes, which is good until that mechanic rotates out. So what you have is a warband that's going to be evergreen, and then a warband tied directly to the season, which was something they originally didn't want to do. But, you know, it's going to be worse when seasons start rotating every 6 months eventually. But the only thing is the models look nice. They're just effectively the Warcry models. It's the Warcry team in different poses, in my opinion. They're slightly less shadowy. They look amazing. Like from a technical standpoint, I never would want to paint them because I could never properly paint them to a good standard that befits them. But they're just kind of a bit boring by being something we've already seen before when you've got these amazing Eshin miniatures. But they also focus around killing and being assassins. So you kind of have 2 warbands doing exactly the same thing in slightly different ways. But they still all look good. And I'm sure because it's elves and Skaven, people will just buy this box, so you don't have to worry about the future of the game. But yeah, it's fine. They're really nice selection of warbands. Just okay. It's pretty good. Oh, I'm gonna have to go through the cards, aren't I? Before I get into the cards, we have the boards. The boards are nice. As I said, I really like the aesthetic of them. They've kind of balanced the cover hexes and blocked hexes more by placing them next to lethals, which is pretty neat. I just think that's really neat. They're nothing too complex. They just look like nice boards. And you got dice. Oh, you get instructions how to build your stuff as well, which is fine. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. Let's go through the core rules of this core set. So as you know, Warhammer Underworlds is now every 6 months you get a new season. So these are the big changes for the new edition. The narrative. And there's one other rule that's changed. You know, there's in the last edition, if you had 6 or more wounds and you were killed, you were worth 2 glory. They've changed it, so now it's 5. If you have 5 or more wounds, you are now worth 2 glory when you die, which is something I suggested, funnily enough. But it was because of more gut crushers. Outside of that, the rules are completely unchanged from anything I can see. So the only changes in the rulebook are the narrative and getting 2 glory from a kill if they have 5 or more wounds, which is a different change. You know, it's fine. The only thing I would say is the game still flows exactly the same. So, you know, you have 3 rounds going activation, power step in that alternation. It's got everything, the refined rules of Harrowdeep, but not using the FAQ with the additional Inspire steps, because obviously this had gone to print way beyond before the FAQ was done. So it's still got the wrong Inspire steps. We just used the FAQ. If you want a full in-depth guide of the rules changes, just watch my Harrowdeep review. I'm not going to repeat myself because, you know, there's literally only 2 things that has changed in the book, the narrative and that one rule. So, you know, the thing is, as I said, you got 3 rounds, 4 activations each. So it goes activation, enemy power step, enemy activation, your power step for that. And then you've got end phase where you score objectives and then upgrades. And it's the end who scored the most glory with the same tiebreakers and everything. So if you're worried about having to buy this for rules, you don't. So that's the rules. But yeah, now I'll go over the cards. I'll start with the Grand Alliance cards first, and I'll go over my top picks. I'll go over what's okay to bad, and then my top picks. And Grand Alliance cards are cards that can only be used by what faction Grand Alliance you have, which is in the core book. So if you're confused, check the book. So starting off with Grand Alliance objectives, we have can't take it with you. Score this in the 3rd end phase if there are 4 more objective cards in your discard pile. It's only 2 glory, and it's the 3rd end phase. It's like that weird objective we had in Nightfall where you basically were playing to lose. Forbidden Ground. Score this in end phase if your Warband holds each objective in your territory and no one's territory and your Warband holds 3 or more objectives. It's a worse version of like making a statement. I just wouldn't take this. Duel. Score this in end phase if 2 or more enemy fighters are action and no friendly fighters are out of action. It's okay. It's only for death. Like the last 3 were all for death. This is just highly specific for 2 glory. It's not bad, but it's not great. Then for beast, well, for destruction, you have into the fray. Score this in end phase. Your leader holds an enemy objective in enemy territory, and you're within 2 X's of 1 or more enemy territory. 1 or more enemy fighters. It's 2 glory that you have to score in the end phase. You can kind of work towards it. It's not bad. I think it's just very situational. Then another destruction card, you have keeping it simple. Score this in end phase if 1 or more enemy leaders are out of action and 1 or more enemy wizards. For 1 glory, it's not really something I would take. Then another destruction you've got, you can't hide. Score this immediately. It's a surge. If you took someone out of action and they were in a cover or edge hex, it's not bad, but it's very positional heavy. Then for order, you have loyal service. It's a surge hybrid. Score this if an enemy fighter's failed attack action had 1 or more supporting fighters or a companion that takes out a target out of action. It's just too specific. Then another ordered one, ordered defense. It's a duel. Score in the end phase if 2 or more surviving friendly. If you have 2 or more surviving friendly fighters, and each of them has 1 or more guard tokens. Maybe for the Lumineth Warband, but it's okay. Then you have unsanctioned, which is order. Score this in end phase if each surviving enemy fighter is in enemy territory or 1 or more enemy wizards is out of action. It's not bad. I could see it in some kind of aggro team. For 2 glory, it's just situational. I don't think of an order team that could reliably score this, especially early in round 1. Then for Grand Alliance objective top picks, we have Arcane Schemes. Score this in end phase for chaos if there are 3 more Gambit spells in your power discard pile, or a friendly Tzeentch wizard holds an objective. Really solid for 1. Dark Domain is for chaos. Score this in end phase if there are no objectives in your territory. After you score this card, pick an opponent. That opponent's warband deals 1 damage to 1 fighter from your warband that isn't a cover hex. So it's depending on your warband, like especially if you're playing Slanesh, this is pretty good. Then you have Gifts of the Dark God, which is a hybrid for chaos. Score this 3 or more friendly fighters have 1 upgrade each, or your warband holds 2 or more objectives. So this is actually pretty solid for 1. So next we have Rival Gambits. So starting off, we have Methodical Destruction, which is a destruction card. Pick 1 objective held by a friendly fighter with no move or charge tokens. Remove it. If only good you can get somehow someone on there without move or charge tokens. Shadow Jaws. Cast on a channel, damage someone in a cover hex. It's okay. Spiteful Channeling is a chaos card. So before you are taken out of action, On a cover roll of a channel, you'll deal 1 damage to the closest enemy fighter. And it's okay. Terrifying Endurance is removing stagger tokens. And then you can stagger someone else if you're Nurgle for a chaos. Martial Discipline is order that lets you reroll supports and double supports when you're attacking. There are better sources for dice accuracy. Then you've got Shaft of Light, which is for order. Pick one feature token that is not an objective token within 3 hexes and then flip it. It's okay. It's actually not bad. Pretty decent. I'll put it okay for now. Then you've got Grand Alliance top picks for Gambits. So first you have Opportunistic Mob. So play this for destruction after friendly fighter's action that took a friendly fighter out of action. If that friendly fighter had 1 or more supporting fighters, draw 2 power cards, which is pretty easy depending on the mob for +2 cards, so +1 in card advantage. Then you have Vile Offering for Chaos. Deal 1 damage to a friendly fighter and draw a card, or take them out of action. If it takes them out of action, you draw 2 cards instead, which is pretty good on stuff like Slanesh and weaker warbands. Then you have Discipline Defense for Order. Reaction. Play this after a failed attack action that targeted a friendly fighter. Give them a guard token or remove 1 move token from them. Pretty solid. Then you've got Buried Treasure for Death. When you play this card, spend 2 glory points. If you do, pick 1 objective card in your power discard pile and give it to a friendly fighter. It's not bad. It's a steep cost, but it's a nice way to I'm going to get rid of this upgrade to draw more cards and then immediately play in the next round. So there are drawbacks to it, but I think it's pretty neat. Then you've got Deaf Soldiers, which is for death. Use this as after an attack action that targets, you can play it only in your power step. You can use this following reaction that persists until the end of the round or 2. Use this reaction. So during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter, and after attack roll, you can reduce the damage to a minimum of 1 until it's been resolved. So you play this at the start of the round and go on, attack me. I could use it on my leader. I could use it on a little one. You would never know. Once again, Death has the most balanced cards. Then another Death card, Lethal Advance. Push up to 2 friendly fighters within 2 hexes of your leader. 1 hex towards the nearest enemy fighter. But all Death warbands love this. This is amazing. So great if you're a Death player. So for Grand Alliance upgrades, we have Demonic Agility for Chaos. Can't give it to a leader. If you're Slanesh or an Assassin. If you roll any dodges in your defense roll, reduce the damage by 1. For each dodge roll, it's okay. Reckless Pact lets you re-roll your attack dice after the defense dice have been rolled, based on if you give yourself 1 or 2 damage. So if you give yourself 2 damage, you re-roll 2 dice. If you give 1, you re-roll 1. It's okay. Shadow Maul is just okay. There are better attack actions. It's only for Chaos. Then Banishing Light is okay for Order. You know, after this fighter's activation, you can flip 1 or more feature tokens that are not objective tokens and are within 1 hex. It's okay. Cruel Maul, once again, it's for death, but there are just better attack actions. Transferred Vigor for death. It's okay. It's a spell action channel. Choose 1 friendly fighter that is out of action. Place them back to life, but then you deal damage equal to their wounds characteristics. So you're usually taking 2 damage for this, which isn't great. Then you've got Counterpunch for destruction. Stagger someone who's adjacent to you, not worth it. Then you've got Rabble Racker for destruction, which I'm pretty sure is the Harvester's Scythe. It's okay. It's restricted to your leader. There are just better attack action upgrades. Then for Grand Alliance upgrades top picks, we have Brigade of Strength for Order. When you make an attack roll 3 or more dice, you consider after 1 additional supporting fighter, and you get +1 dice for range 1 attacks if you're a brawler, so really good. Discipline Formation is when you're target of attack action and adjacent to the target, or when you're a target of an attack action that's 1 or more supporting fighters, you can reroll any number of defense dice in the defense roll. Really good for multi-defense fighters. Then for Death, you have Bonds of Fate, can only be on a 2 wound warrior. After this is taken out of action, you place them on a starting hex in your territory, so bring them back to life, and then break this upgrade, so really good for Death. And then you have a crazy one for Destruction, Instinctive Shield. For Destruction, yeah. When you give this upgrade to a fighter, give them 1 shield token, another one if they're a wizard. After this fighter's dealt damage, but before they're taken out of action, you heal them based on the number of wounds, shield tokens. So you can use at any point, but if someone's going to do 2 damage to you, that's going to kill you, and you have 1 wound, you will live. If they do 1 damage to kill you, you'll live. It's basically a shadow way to get +1 wound. Really good. And now I will go through the many universal cards found in this core set. And once again, I'll go over, just as before. So let's get into it, because there are a lot. I have so many cards to review. So for the universal objectives, we have Chum the Waters. So it's a dual, scoring an end phase if 1 or more enemy fighters are each on a feature token, and they have one or more of those fighters have one or more wound counters. It's okay for 2 glory, but the thing is, a lot of people don't really play on the objectives anymore. You have Claim It All. If your leader is the only fighter holding an objective in enemy territory for 2 glory, it's not bad, but I question this use in the best of 3. Then you have Courageous Conjurer, Surge Hybrid. If you resolve a spell and you were vulnerable when you made the casting roll, or you were adjacent to 2 or more enemy fighters, it's okay. Then you have Down with the Ship. If you take an enemy leader in enemy territory out of action for 2 glory, it's okay, but considering most leaders are rushing you, it's going to be very hard to score this. Extraordinary Revelation. Score this in the face of 2 or more friendly fighters are holding an objective in enemy territory. For 2 glory, it's not bad, but it's just not easy. It's fine. Then you have Feeding Fear. Score this in an immediate... it's a hybrid surge. Score this immediately after an enemy fighter is taken out of action while 1 or more domain gambits were played, or after an activation step in round 3, so the 3rd round of the game, if 1 or more vulnerable enemy fighters are in enemy territory. It's just too situational. Living on the Edge. Score this. It's a duel if your leader is vulnerable in enemy territory. For 2 glory, it's just unreliable. Lost Leader. Score this if your leader is out of action and you have more glory than each opponent for 2 glory. Just, I'm sure you can make it work. It's just odd. Then you have Lucky Find. Score this in an end phase if friendly fighters have 1 or more map upgrades. It's okay. Then you have Lured In. Score this immediately after an enemy fighter on an objective token in your territory is taken out of action. It's a weird defensive strike, but it's not great. Then for universal objective top picks, we have Brave Advance. Score this if your leader is in enemy territory and 1 or more friendly fighters are in no one's territory or yours territory. So very good if you're playing stuff like Mollog. Ferret them Out is a hybrid. Score the enemy assassin was taken out, or 1 or more enemy fighters are taken out in your territory. So it's like a non-surge defensive strike. Master of the Abyss is score this in the end phase of 3 or more friendly fighters are in cover hexes. After you score this, pick one of your opponent and they deal 1 damage to one of your fighters in a cover hex. For 2 glory though, pretty good. Then you've got Shadow Elimination. Score this as a surge or duel. If your Warband flipped a feature token in enemy territory in that power step, and that token is being held by a friendly leader. So you literally, you combine it with the universal objective in the zombie deck. You just literally the universal pods. You literally just charge onto a feature token or move on in enemy territory and flip it, and you get 1 glory or 2 glories. That's ridiculous. Then you have Shifting Walls. Score this in an end phase if no edge hexes are occupied and each fighter is directed to no blocked hexes. For 2 glory, it's interesting. I would need to play it more, but your opponent can counterplay this by just leaving someone on an edge hex. It's going to be very hard to pull off. Then you also have Sudden Revelation. Score this immediately after a power step if your Warband flipped 2 or more feature tokens in that power step. This is like Hidden Purpose, but worse. It's so funny. Oh, I can't believe this got through testing, but this is probably the reason you're buying the core set if you're a championship player. Such a good card. So now we have the universal cards that are okay. So we have King of the Deeps, +1 dice to friendly attacks, +2 if the attack damage characteristic greater than their wounds characteristics. It's just better, +1 dice. Murky Oblivion is a spell. If cast, attack actions has +1 dice if targeting in a cover hex. It's okay, not great. Purified Water, after 1 or more domain cards are discarded, so it's a reaction. Choose 1 friendly fighter, heal 2. It's very specific healing, just 1 healing potion. Pushed Around is choose 1 friendly minion or choose 1 enemy minion. It's okay, but you would probably just take Sidestep instead, even with the distraction effect it has. Reckless Rush, double your move but then take 1 damage and then stagger. Too much of a downside. Tainted Waters, play this after domain card is played and deal 1 damage to an enemy fighter. I guess it's better if we get more domain cards. Vicious Struggle, choose 1 enemy fighter and 1 friendly fighter with no charge tokens. That is adjacent to that fighter. Give each of them 1 move token. It's just too situational, not great. Then we have the Universal Gambits top picks. So yeah, you have the amazing Barging Forward, which scatters you 5 until it's interrupted. And then after the push, if you're a brawler, deal 1 damage to 1 enemy adjacent fighter. Amazing. Like, this should have been scatter 5 and push 3. Like, what on earth? This is amazing. Then you've got Creaking Ceiling, which is a domain card. Each time someone is driven back into an edge hex or hex containing a blocked hex, adjacent to a blocked hex, sorry, deal 1 damage, and it persists until the end of the round on another domain played. Really good. So then you have Dark Inversion, which swaps 2 empty feature tokens, which is pretty neat. I'm sure there's some play around that. Then you have Into Deep, because Harrow Deep in my diachasm. Enemy fighters cannot be on guard in your territory, which is actually pretty good for stuff like with Scavenged Armor seeing so much play. Then you've got the Preamble Lock, where objective cards cannot be flipped, and this persists until the end of the round, or an objective token is moved into an adjacent hex. So it stops flipping effectively, because they realized they printed cards that were too powerful for flipping. Then you have Quintox Bubble, which is a single cast channel spell. Choose 1 friendly fighter within 4, -1 damage to attack actions that target it, and you have Fly, and it persists until you're taken damage. So actually pretty useful. Step Between Shadows. Choose 1 or more friendly fighters in a cover hex that has no move or charge tokens. Place them in a different cover hex and give them 1 move token. So really good for teleporting. I think there's a lot of play around this. Suffocating Mists is choose someone in a cover hex and deal 1 damage. Pretty good. Then you've got Swarming Darkness. Choose 1 friendly fighter and pick a feature token within 3 hexes. If that feature token is an objective token, flip it. Otherwise, move that token 1 hex towards you. So it's actually good flipping / feature token moving. So it's really good, really good. So now we have the universal upgrades, which are okay. Cursed Cutlass is fine. You get a spent glory for killing someone with it, and instead of a normal glory, it's okay. Dark Fortitude, you cannot give this to a large fighter. You get to, if you're in a cover hex, heal this too if you kill someone. There's better healing out there. Dark Majesty is -1 damage from range 1 attack actions that target this fighter to a minimum 1 if you're in a cover hex. The only problem is you have to be in a cover hex and it's range 1. Because otherwise there's ways around it. Dark Strength is +1 damage to range 1 attacks if you're in a cover hex, and it's just because if it was range 1 and 2, it'd be much better, otherwise I wouldn't take it. Faceless Mask is a domain card. If 1 or more domain gambits have been played, this fighter cannot be chosen. This fight can't be dealt damage by gambits. It's okay. Oblivion Shield, -1 wounds, but you get innate dodges while in a cover hex, but you cannot be on guard, so it's not worth the equipment in my opinion. Then Revealing Fog is a bound spell, which is cast on a focus. Pick 1 feature token that is not an objective token within 3 of the caster, and then you teleport to that. It's okay, but it's an action, so you might be able just to move there instead. Shadow Spear is okay, but you can only make it if you're in a cover hex. It's not bad, it's just really restrictive. Shrewd Wits makes you an assassin. After a scatter ability resolve, push this fighter up to 2 hex. So it's any scatter. So you could, your opponent or you, but it's just situational. Then Writhing Void Fiends is a Denzine. If you target someone in a cover hex, you have Grievous and Ensnare. It's just situational still. Then for the universal upgrades top picks, we have Abyssal Summoner. During attack actions made by this fighter, if this fighter is in a cover hex, you get 1 supporting fire, which is actually pretty neat, especially on multi-defense. Then you have Dark Intellect, which is so good. After this activation, in which you drew 1 or more power cards, if this fighter is in a cover hex, roll 1 magic dice. On a channel, draw 1 power card. So you draw a power card, and then you roll a dice. On a 50% chance, you draw another power card. So I can see this a lot. Then you've got Detailed Map Fragment, which is a really plain name for Underworlds, is a map card. As an action, gain 1 spent glory point, then pick 1 opponent, and they can play an upgrade without spending, then break this card. Or reaction, after an activation step, if this fighter has 4 more upgrades, map upgrades, and is holding an objective, gain 2 glory, then break this. This is really good because literally it's your last activation. You give your fighter this one, gain 1 spent glory, your opponent goes, they may be in a position where they can't play any upgrades, or like, yeah, you use this in a situation where it's your last activation of the game, or your opponent has no power cards because it's 1 free glory. Really odd. Ferocious Bite is great for beasts. It works on anyone for range 1, but really good for beasts because they get +2 dice instead. Then you've got Honed Instincts, which is range 1 attack actions get innate single supports. And if this fighter's companion, they get +1 damage. So literally, the crab build is back. Everybody, crab time. It's crab time. Crab time is back. Then you've got Nether defense. +1 defense if you're in a cover hex and you can't be on guard. But I think I would probably take this, especially with Abyssal Summoner. So you have like 3 or 4 defense with additional supports. Crazy. I also forgot to talk about the Rivals of Harrowdeep, which I was given to review, but I'll include it in the Nethermaze review because, well, why not? It's just the Harrowdeep core set warbands and their faction cards in a single box. The same thing we had with, what do you call it? The Champions of Dreadfane box. It's fine. I mean, it's £47.50 after I found out recording. So it's only like, what was it? A core set is £65. So with that, you're missing like out on the boards, dice and extra universal and like Grand Alliance cards. Just buy that instead. This would have been nice at like £40, £35, at £47.50. Just don't buy it. It's just not really that useful. And yeah, if you're a new player returning, I'd say just buy Harrowdeep or eBay the warbands you want. It's not great value, sadly. So that's pretty much it. I'm tired from going through a lot of cards, but overall, I think this core set's pretty neat. My main downsides aren't with the core set itself, but more of the business model for Underworlds going forwards, because the reason core sets are apparently going 6 monthly is not because they want faster seasons. Core sets sell more. But, or at least I believe, because it would shock me otherwise. But I think this core set is really solid. It's really, like, the warbands are really fun. They're more interesting, really cool models, fun to play, okay rival decks. My only problem is they're packaged with, if you're just buying this for rivals, you won't have a bad time, but you're going to be lumbered with all these universal cards you're not going to use. Because the rumors I hear are apparently with Season 7 onwards, universal cards are being removed altogether. They're just going to be rival decks. So Championship is going to be silently killed with rivals and rivals plus warlords being pushed instead. But what I would have liked to see, if you're going to go with 6 monthly seasons, make a core set with the core set and then a core set that just has the warbands and the card separate. I think that would have been better, because you're going to be in a real drag as a regular player buying a core set every 6 months, forgetting about the price. You're just going to stack up with all these boards and dice that you don't need, especially with the dice. And it just builds up. Because the thing is, even though there's a lot of good universal cards and some Grand Alliance cards in here, a lot of them are still bad. So you're still lumbered with a lot of useless cardboard that you may not want, especially if you're only going to play Rivals format and Warlords format, where you can't use any of these because you can only use rival decks and the Essentials pack to build decks from with your rival deck. But overall, I think it's pretty... Oh, and the rulebook. Like, just make the rulebook free. Stop printing it. I know why you're printing it, but just make it free online. I know the last one was, but just make the rulebook a living free PDF. As I said, the only things that changed were large fighters going from 6 wounds to 5 wounds and the narrative. The funny thing is, yeah, even the reaction windows are wrong, so you're going to have to go back to the FAQ because it was printed before the FAQ went. But overall, really fun. I think it's pretty cool if you're a new player. It's a great jumping on point. Even, like, you know, the map cards and domain cards were touted as amazing new mechanics, but they're not in the rulebook. They're just on the cards only. They add some nice effects. I don't think they're going to warp the game, but we have 2 more expansions to see how they do. But they're nice additions. They're okay. Yeah, they're starting to push it with adding more and more new rules. You know, still the big downside is a lot of the keywords aren't explained in the core rulebook. But overall, yeah, really fun. Happily recommend this to new players. If you're a competitive player, you have to buy this. Like, you have to buy the core set for the cards, the universal cards in here, because you're going to need them. You're going to need them for championship play because they feel like they're almost purposely broken, so you have to buy them. Because, you know, the Harrowdeep, or was it Diachasm? Their core sets got their cards in the core sets got restricted, but really cool. I really like this core set, and now we know we're going to Haish next. So for pros and cons, pros, really cool warbands. Great introductory point for new players, really good looking warbands. and some really broken cards that you will need for Championship. Downsides, I don't know if this game wants to compete, appeal to rival casual players or the competitive hardcore scene, because it feels like it wants to do both but doesn't want to commit to both. But that's a more holistic Games Workshop thing. What else? The K-Knight Shadow Stalkers, Shadowborn. As I said, they're just pretty plain because they're the Warcry team in different poses. So I would have liked to see something different there, just visually. And yeah, you still got a lot of bad cards, like just not useful, especially with the Essentials cards and even stuff from Harrowdeep. So, you get a lot, and you get a lot of cards. So it's kind of overwhelming. And stuff isn't explained in the rulebook. There's only 2 rules changes. I mean, there's only 1 rules change in the rulebook. Not that I'm saying there should be more rules changes and you have to change something every new edition. It just kind of feels like this rulebook should just be free online permanently. Should just be like online rulebook. But yeah, I still like it, and I would happily recommend it to people. Obviously I got this for free, which was great. Don't know about the price, but I've already done that price skip part. Yeah, my only general things is Games Workshop needs to decide who they want to appeal this game to, because it is no longer the ultimate competitive miniatures game, and hasn't been for a long time. I would argue 40k is a more competitive game than this, and even Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, even Aeronautica Imperialis, I'd say is a more competitive game than Underworlds now. But if rumors are true, we're going to lose Universal decks and Universal cards, and there's going to be rival decks, but we'll see. I believe the next 2 warbands for this season are going to be Witch Hunters, Human Witch Hunters, and I think from the Rumor engine, something Khorne, probably like a new Khorne Priest and some Khorne guys, wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I think it's fun. Gonna upset people that I think it's fun, because I like that people get upset. I talk about Warhammer Underworlds. So, oh man, it's a bit rambling, but I found it funny. You had a few people from the UK scene going around my posts telling me, please stop talking about Underworlds, John. And then some of them a few weeks later were like, can you please shout us out for our local scenes? And I just laughed at them. It was great. It's funny. I live a weird life. But yeah, I still play casually with friends, and I've even taught one friend to play, Charles. And we'll have some bat reps up soon. But yeah, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as comment. Let me know what you think of the season, the review, everything. As I said, I'll have the warbands done separately. And yeah, if you want to buy this core set, you can either do it directly from Games Workshop or via my affiliate link at Element Games, which will net you 15 to 25% discount, while at no additional cost to yourself. And then also, I have a Discord you can check out for free down in the episode description, and a Patreon if you really want to support me even more. And a quick shout out to my Patrons. So for my Adepts of the Crit, I have Theodore, Michael, Tarun, and then for my Veterans of the Crits, I have Samjur, and I also have Confucius. So thank you for all your support. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I may pay up the Skaven warband. I really like Skaven. I know who wrote this, and if you're still watching this, I hope you don't hate me, but I really like what you did with the Skaven warband. Well, all the warbands. No, yeah, it's really fun. I'm interested to see where the game goes. Obviously, as you know, I play this casually. I think I've said that enough times. But yeah, it's okay. I know a lot of people are upset, but if you are upset with the game, just walk away and leave it, because all you're going to get is the hardcore people getting very upset at you, and they're already you can't even make jokes in the Underworlds group anymore. So just leave them alone. Just move on to other games. I know you're upset, but it is what it is. And if you're still part of Underworlds, I'd focus on Rivals and Rivals Plus Warlord events. They seem to be bringing back people into the game, which is what is needed. And you should probably just let Championship die, because it's too complex now. It's just too much of a mess. But I really like how Rivals Plus Warlords, whatever they're going to call it, is going forward. Seems to be attracting new players, which is what the game needs. But yeah, until we bust through my Nethermaze into the light and step into the light to the realm of Heish, remember, no matter how deep and dark you go, you can always roll a crit.